So, good evening to everyone. Is everyone here? All the panelists? So, do we have the right signal from TV9 studios? Can we begin? Thank you very much, Justin. Thank you. And welcome to all of you. Delighted to be here at TV9's Global Summit. They want to know where does India stand in the new world order? And we talk about sustainability. Making holistic sustainability a growth agenda to shape India's climate ambition. What is it that all of us are looking for? 2047, a magic date that we are all looking to, Viksit Bharat. Isn't that right? Yes, all of us. And all of us believe that we have Achhe Din in front of us. We are the largest country in the world, the 5th largest economy, on our way to becoming the 3rd largest economy, and in some senses, very, very happy as a country that we are gaining our rightful place on the global high table. A matter that makes every Indian proud, and every Indian has every reason to feel good and rejuvenate himself and herself in this state of play. Last year, or the year, we hosted the big, huge G20 summit, a grand success, a testimony to, in a sense, India having arrived on the global stage. And so, therefore, this particular edition, the one that focuses on sustainability, is particularly important. Now, for the viewers, I want to make a few simple but very important points. The general conventional wisdom is that you need to burn fossil fuels to generate more energy, which gives you more GDP. And so, therefore, if you have to glow up the global value chain as becoming the 3rd largest economy, a much larger economy, and heading towards that side, our GHG emissions will go up. True, they would. But we are also a country which has taken a simultaneous target for ourselves, net zero by the year 2070. And believe me, while 2070 may look very far from now, the time tends to fly, and that's also a directional shift that we all need to do. We are all seated here to try and see what can we do in terms of the industry participation in this great journey that India is taking towards Viksit Bharat by 2047, i.e. a developed country by 2047, and a country which is a responsible country, which works on sustainability and makes its own target of net zero GHG emissions by the year 2070. All of this is inherent to us. We are, in that sense, a country which is taking on the world, taking on the fundamental challenge where it used to be said that more fossil fuels used, the better it will be for your GDP. But we want to say, no, we will decouple this particular thing. We've taken some of the most onerous targets in the world in terms of renewable energy. Today, among the G20 countries, we are perhaps the only one which is on target for meeting its own commitments to the world, to the United Nations, in terms of the nationally determined commitments on climate action. We're a country which is imbibed this by ourselves. So I want to say that we are particularly happy that TV9 has thought it fit to have a segment of its global summit focused specifically on the issue of sustainability. I also want to make another point. I know all of you are seeing the world, the international news channels, and you are seeing a certain kind of view and an attack on the idea of taking action on fossil fuels, etc. But I want to say that the climate challenge for all of us is not just a challenge in terms of burn less fossil fuels, do more in terms of decoupling. It's also a challenge that the world is faced with a reality, and that reality is global warming. In fact, most people would say that the year that has just gone by has been the hottest in decades that the world has seen. This has serious imperatives for a country like India, which is vulnerable. Indeed, the entire global south is vulnerable. And so what we do is in our own interest, in our own good, quite apart from the fact that what a country like India does has a global south role model. And we are a country which is proud in terms of what we've been able to do there. At Glasgow, 3 years back, Prime Minister Modi in the year 2021 took on this particular thing unilaterally, that India will work towards both sustainability as it pursues its development goals, and we took the target of net zero 2070. We become world leaders in terms of solar power. In fact, because the rates of solar power have come down in India, so many parts of the global south feel that it's an alternate energy source that we can take. We've taken on tremendous targets in terms of green hydrogen. We've taken on targets in terms of electric mobility. We've taken on targets in terms of electric lighting. We've done this unilaterally, and we are a country, we believe, which can be a major role model, I would like to say, for the world, but certainly for the global south. I'm particularly happy and delighted that TV9 has chosen TERI, India's most venerable institution dealing with energy, resources, and climate issues for the last 50 years as its knowledge partner. Thank you very much. I represent TERI. I've spent a large part of my life negotiating at the climate change negotiations worldwide, but have had a very strong involvement with TERI. I must say, before we open up to a multimedia clip to take on various things, that I am today very delighted at the panel that I have. And the other panelists, please don't mind my saying so. But as a middle-class boy growing up in Delhi, there were two things which were absolutely central to my life, which was mobility. And I'm delighted to have Ashok Leyland here with me. Riding the DTC buses was the only way out at that time, and I'm delighted to see my friend here with us to talk about what his great company is doing. And then, what are we talking about? Lighting, isn't it? We're sitting in Bharat Mandapam, but lighting is the main thing that allowed people like me. You read, you sat in front of a lamp, you imbibed, you took yourself forward. I'm delighted to see Philips here with us in their newest avatar. Again, companies which to me represent this very important element. What can we do at the level of people? And I want to remind everyone of the Honorable Prime Minister's huge initiative, the life imperative. What can we do? Governments will do, governments will take issues on policy space, the international community will do or not do, all very well. What can we do in terms of ourselves, and what can the corporate world to do to help us? And when I see these two, believe me, these are perhaps those issues which link with us in terms of our daily life, at least the daily life for all ordinary people. We're sitting in a city, so let me say middle-class people in the city, hard-working people who are doing their things. Mobility, and in terms of their availability to be able to do things, which means light in the real sense. This doesn't mean the rest of you on the panel are not important. We have people from the most important sectors. Steel, fundamental to this entire challenge of climate change. People who are dealing with electronics, extremely important. And then we have those who have money. They matter. And frankly speaking, that's what we'd like to hear. But I'm also delighted to welcome a colleague of mine, ex-naval officer, who will tell you what else is happening in this big, huge area that we talk about. Defense is not something that we can just forget. It's a major area in which action needs to be taken. What can we do in shipping, in so many areas? So I'll stop now. I want to welcome all our viewers and everybody. Believe me, sustainability is India. India will be the role model for the world in terms of sustainability. Be proud of what we are doing. We're taking on responsibilities for ourselves, responsibilities for the world, and of course for the global south. We'll play a little clip just to give you a little bit of an idea of what does Indian business have to say in terms of their advancing the net zero agenda. So can we have the clip?
A paradigm shift in how our economies function is crucial to tackle climate risk and push towards net zero emissions. That is where TERI has an important role to play. TERI's industry charter for near zero ambition by 2050 talks of Indian industry coming together to achieve this ambitious target. It's a voluntary pledge, and for that we all have to stand together, work together, and achieve it together. What is required today is the roadmap for implementing technologies by various industry players.
Sustainability is clearly to create that very positive economic, environmental, and social impact, which translates to a world with zero emissions, zero waste, and zero inequality.
First electrify and then decarbonize.
I think we've got a good push and impetus by Government of India in terms of India Solar Alliance, but I think we need a similar big deal, so similar deal in terms of similar push as you would normally call it, towards green hydrogen, biofuels, and fundamentally making sure that we can go to bioresources towards producing the energy needs of the world.
The hydrogen roadmap of India is a fantastic starting point.
Hydrogen is ultimately, we cannot just simply think about it as a direct replacement technology. We have to think about this as a technology that is going to yield its own sequences of opportunities and things that are going to be new and different.
Major requirement would be, one, the collaborations, second, certain government initiatives, and third one would be how the finance can be made available for many such demonstration projects which are required not by only cement sector but globally.
The key buckets which we need to look at is agriculture, MSME, and bottom of the pyramid consumers.
We have evolved a system which helps farmers reduce their costs, but at the same time improve productivity, and thereby, at the end, resulting into prosperity. So you ensure sustainability, carbon reduction, but at the same time, you must focus on as much or more to ensure that his income goes up and prosperity happens.
We need innovation in finance. I think if MSMEs have to embrace the journey, finance is a very, very critical element in it. There, I think we need to look at a lot more banks and NBFCs' participation with fintech solutions.
We'll have to understand the value chain across multiple sectors, their adjacencies, and come up with solutions such that truly the circular economy, decarbonization, as well as the focus on green becomes a reality.
I think that recycling and the circular economy will play a big role in reducing the carbon footprint.
We are continuing to invest in products, in fact accelerating our investment in products that are all related to climate change, but we will not touch anything which has got any sort of hydrocarbons involved.
We all are entering the decades of climate action. It will be crucial time for humanity, and at TERI this issue has taken its rightful place at the center stage.
Let us collaborate with few like-minded organizations and have advocacy activities, advocacy plan. And may I, for this purpose, request all our charter members that let us make a group of 3 or 5 CEOs and then who can work on it and then take the matter forward.
If you bring the players together, right, and kind of put them on a common network to kind of drive that forward, that's also a possibility that we could explore.
It's really important that collaboration and co-creation, working together is the need of the hour.
Unless we don't do something today, then I don't think we can call ourselves pioneers for tomorrow, or pioneers at heart for the good of generation.
I invite Indian industry to come forward so that we all can come together and chart a low carbon pathway for the country and benefit not just our country but globe as a whole.
So thank you very much, TERI. Thank you very much for what you're doing in bringing people together. But now for our viewers, let's start by giving ourselves a little bit of a congratulations on what we've done. Anju Kuruvilla, your CEO was there, but you are here with us. And you say that yours is a company which has already achieved net zero. Are we not delighted to have such a company operate in the Indian corporate sphere? We want to hear from you. What have you done? Short, in a little while, because we really have a shortage of time. So please.
So, good evening, everybody. I represent Danfoss, a company, a 90-plus-year-old Danish origin climate and energy solutions major. And why I mention Danish is because Denmark is one of the first countries which will turn carbon neutral by 2030. So when Denmark took on this ambition to be carbon neutral by 2030, the region where Danfoss and many other leading Danish organizations come from, they came forward and said, if my country is going to be carbon neutral by 2030, I will support by becoming carbon neutral by 2029. And given that target, it kind of translated to all Danfoss operations across the globe, and we took an ambitious target to be carbon neutral by 2030 in our global operations. And happy to share that our Denmark office, the campus, turned carbon neutral as on December 2022. And this is not something which is limited just to Europe. And our campus in Chennai is already above 90% carbon neutral, especially in Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. And how we did this is very, very simple, because we streamlined our focus in ESG on 3 major areas, namely decarbonization, circularity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And on the decarbonization front, we followed a very simple mantra called RRR. So reduce, reuse, and resource. So we decoupled our production from our energy consumption, and we reduced our energy consumption. The second one, reuse, wherever possible through latest technologies like by adopting district energy, as well as sector integration, as well as waste heat recovery. We have managed to reuse our energy footprint. And last but not the least, wherever this is not possible across the globe, we have resourced our energy requirements through power purchase agreements. And I'm happy to share that our Chennai operations have been operating on 100% green energy for the last 2 years, and above 90% for the years before. And then when it comes to the circularity, we have taken another RRR philosophy, where it is we are reducing our use on reducing our resource use, then rethinking the designs to include more circularity in the resources which we use, and redesign our products in such a way that there is a circularity quotient embedded in it. Happy to share that all new products developed by Danfoss will have a circularity element embedded in it by 2030. And last but not the least, the DEI factor of it. Who's going to do it all? It is people, and people are at the foundation of all that we do. And that is the reason why we have diversity, equity, and inclusion as the last pillar of our ESG operations. And this is really important because we are standing at a juncture where there are 163 gender identities across the world, and in most parlances we are still talking about how to integrate more women into the workforce. So given the same, that's the reason why where we have DEI in the focus, so that we apply a gender lens to all the climate and energy solutions and products which we would manufacture going forward. So that was our simple way for carbon neutrality, and this is how we have been progressing.
Anju, thank you very much. You used lots of expressions. RRR. It reminds us of something wonderful that happened from India. You also used DEI. It's in the news for all the wrong reasons. But I won't go into that. You said you are a company from Denmark. This takes me back to the great COP in Copenhagen, where for the first time the world committed $100 billion a year for the developing world. We're still struggling to come up with the numbers. In the last conference of parties held in Baku, while the preamble spoke about the need for trillions, we ended up with a paltry figure of 300 billion, and people are very unsure where even that's coming from. Shoaib, I'm afraid money matters, whichever way we look at it. And it would appear to me that we, as a huge, big economy, but a developing economy with tremendous amounts of needs, this business of global collaboration, I don't know where it's going. But what do we do in terms of money, which the corporate world needs? I'm not talking about people, I'm not talking even about adaptation, but simply in terms of business needs to make them move towards this glide path of net zero by 2070. What do you have to say?
Thanks a lot. I think if you look at 3 important pillars that have to come together to achieve net zero for any economy, or the capital. Second is your technology, and third is your policy, regulation, and so and so. So when I say technology as a whole, I think it comes like, it's industry, technology, startups, first of a kind projects, and also like scale up projects. So all these phases, like for example, you need a different kind of equity or a government or a grant money. You need to solve this. And at the same time, if you look at first of a kind projects, and then typically these technology projects move into first of a kind projects, where you're trying to do implementation for the first time. Again, that needs a very different kind of a hybrid structure, where it's a combination of private equity, combination of a late stage venture capital, and combination of a bit of government money. And then comes the scaling part. So when we started this fund, right, it was very clear that the money was available, a lot of money was available for the scale up, and the dearth of money was where technology money was not available for technology, especially like countries in India, and at the same time, first of a kind projects. So now, fast forward 4-5 years, the scenario has changed. The major challenge now as a venture capital fund, what we see is there is huge amount of money, especially for technology, especially for first of a kind projects coming from a lot of philanthropic institutes, a lot of global institutes. But the missing part, though you say capital is very important, the missing part, unfortunately, now we as a country have to solve is technology. So out of those, like if you look at a scale of 0 to 100, right? Let's say there are 100 technologies that need to decarbonize and be a net zero country by 2070. We only have 20-25% of the technologies ready, which can be commercially deployed. So we still have 75% of technologies that needs to be developed or that needs to be worked on to achieve our 2070 goals. So I think money is following, but unfortunately, especially we need more and more engineers to focus on build those right technologies so that we can take those technologies as fast as possible for commercialization.
Shoaib, thank you very much. Alok, let me turn to you. While you represent, of course, this huge conglomerate, as I said, Wheels of India, Ashok Leyland. But when we entered this room, we were having a conversation on startups. And you said that as such a large engineering giant, you interact with them often. And you felt that there was a new kind of energy that you saw in the people. Money perhaps was one major issue, Shoaib, as you said, but that they were being innovative in technological developments and in the cutting edge. What do you have to say on this? A little bit about your company and what you're doing on this large scale, but what are you seeing in the ecosystem?
Sure, thanks Ambassador. Happy to be here. I think just want to share with everyone that Ashok Leyland is rated #1 in Sustainalytics in our category, which is heavy machinery and trucks globally, not just in India. The journey is still a lot to be accomplished, but I think it's a good start for us. It actually starts with setting the aspirations. So our aspiration essentially is very, very similar to overall, I think, India's ambition. We were born in 1948. India was 1947. So I think we kind of overlapped a little bit from a 75th year celebration standpoint. So, and again, it's a very, very strong footprint that we have from an India standpoint. So we are going to be carbon neutral by 2030, which means carbon neutral by operations. Scope 3 is a big part of any companies from a usage standpoint. So I think that's the next level. So that's going to be net zero by 2048, the 100th year of our existence. What we feel is, I think partnerships are going to be key in terms of reaching our goals, because our overall, I think, agenda from a net zero standpoint, it is going to be met maybe 30% by existing solutions, but 60 to 70% is going to be new solutions. And that's where I think, Ambassador, in terms of the new age startups also come into play. And that's where I think they bring in that energy, they bring in new solutions, they bring the ability to challenge existing paradigms. So that becomes very, very key. I've actually interacted with IISc, I have interacted with IIT Madras, IIT Delhi, and I think there are huge startups and they are actually focusing on in a big way in terms of solving industry problems, something very different from what it was 30 years back. So I think they have really changed the paradigm. I think we can definitely leverage that. I think also in terms of there are new business models coming up. There are new business models, battery as a service, new business models in terms of, and these are really, I think, the startups are picking some of these up. I think even in the finance side, I think there will be startups which are actually leveraging these newer financing models, because so maybe I think we don't have, I think maybe the DFIs out here, but people who have been, I think, used to funding in a very different collateral-based way, I think they have to really now see how they can actually fund in a very different paradigm. So I think, and there are the new different investment models that are coming in. And lastly, in terms of from a group standpoint, I think we are putting, I think, our money where what we are talking about. So we actually incubated several businesses, and they're not incubated, they're big businesses in their own right. So Hinduja Renewables is there, then we are actually having Switch Mobility, which is on electric mobility. Then to manage operations of buses, electric buses and municipalities in states, we have Om Mobility. So we have different, and then we have in charging infrastructure. So the list goes on. So I think what I'm saying is it's a great opportunity for us to look at, and that's the way Ashok Leland is looking at it, and that's the same way I think Hinduja Group is also looking at it. We are very excited at this stage.
Alok, thank you very much. For me, you always meant moving not just forward but also upwards. Wow, and very good to see that you're not just doing it yourself, but you sense a sense of confidence and a sense of optimism. Absolutely excellent. Mr. Sanjay Singh, let me turn to you, sir. You've been secretary in the government, in the Department of Steel, dealing with what we all from the climate world say, the most hard to abate sectors, the most difficult guys. What can we do about them? And now you serve on one of our premier institutions, companies dealing with steel, with Jindal Steel. I'd like to hear from you. What are you doing in this absolutely what is known as the hard to abate sector?
Thank you. Let me put it in perspective. We are on the path of becoming Viksit. And for that, we have to grow at the pace of at least 8% consistently over 20 years. And there is a strong correlation between growth of steel sector and growth of an economy when economy is in the developmental phase. And you can see from the figures of India as well that we have been growing at a pace of around 6 to 7%, and steel sector has also been growing in past around 6 to 7%. And now the pace has increased, and steel sector's growth CAGR in time to come is going to be 7%. Why it is so? 60% of the steel is consumed by the construction and infrastructure sector. 1/3 of the steel is consumed in the government projects. So steel becomes very important. And in time to come, our steel consumption is going to further increase. And the target is for the nation is 300 million tons by 2030, 500 million tons by 2047. But steel is also hard to abate sector. It emits 2.5 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per ton of steel in our country, which is 11% of our entire carbon dioxide emission in the country. So that is the challenge. And as you rightly mentioned, it's a hard to abate sector. And there are all kinds of steel makers, small, big, mega, and different kind of steel making processes. Blast furnace is a mainstream. And that is the process through which we will be able to reach 300 million tons and 500 million tons. And that is most difficult to green. So the challenge lies there. But all the steel majors and as well as MSMEs, what we categorize as secondary steel makers, they are doing their bit toward decarbonization and set out a roadmap towards it. The route of decarbonization which the steel majors are following are starting from renewable energy. Every industry is investing in renewable energy, for instance, the group I represent, we have planned to set up 1.6 gigawatt of renewable energy by this year end, investing in green hydrogen. Green hydrogen has a lot of potential to green through electric arc furnace. But the problem lies in blast furnace. In blast furnace, again, the greening can only be done through induction of higher level of technologies, which I am saying is efficiency, number one. And number two, when the carbon capture and utilization technologies, they mature, are deployed. So the target for the big steel players toward decarbonization is by 2050, most of them will decarbonize. But it is going to be a difficult task because there are not many mature technology right now available. Whatever are there, they're in the pilot phase. And the major bottleneck in steel, I'm talking about the country as a whole, as was rightly mentioned, finance. To be able to retrofit the current technology, which is 180 million tons of steel making capacity, an investment of $280 billion is required. So that will have to come from the steel players themselves. Secondly, the challenge is about the creation of green steel market, carbon market. So for that, government has set the ball in motion by introduction of a green steel policy and green steel taxonomy. So a lot of the levers from the government side and from the industry side have been put in place, and now steel players are now galvanizing their speed towards it, and in time to come, I'm pretty certain that decarbonization is hard to abate sector is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. In my understanding, once the hard to abate sectors understand they have to do it, they will be galvanized, and thank you for using that expression. Can I turn to the Shree Cement, the other area that everybody says is impossible to do, but we must do, isn't it, Rathi Saab? Where are we going to go? So what are you doing about it?
Sanjay ji told, hard to abate sector, steel, cement also comes in that directions only. Steel and cement both are required for the growth of the country. As we have targeted 2047 will be developed country, definitely these two has to grow. Today the cement consumption is 50% of the world average. Even if I see from the American point of view, we are 1/6 only. So volume is going to increase in a big way. But when we see the carbon emissions, basically, we are 10 to 15% lower than the world average. So that's the good part, but that is not sufficient because almost 0.6 ton per ton of cement CO2 emitted, which is equal to 7 to 8% of the total CO2 emission in India. Now coming back to cement production system, there are 4 areas. One area is 60% CO2 emissions comes from the process itself, because that process requirement is the calcination basically. Then another 40% or 30% comes from the energy side, basically the fuel consumption or electricity consumptions. Now coming back to what actions we are taking, the easiest way is whatever electricity we are using, we are converting it to the renewable. And from Shree Cement point of view, as on today, 78% capacity is renewable only or green energy only. Almost 55% of our consumption is from the green energy only. So that's the bright side. And we are continuously targeting that all our power consumptions should come from the green energy only. Now, point is there are certain limitations in the states where we cannot go for the 100%. There are many limitations like the solar, wind, seasonal, timely. So we are fighting with those challenges. In the some state, one state we are able to get 95% production from the renewable energy only. another state, we are just reaching to 30%. This is the one area. Fuel side, lot of experiments are going on all over world, that how this fuel can be converted, electricity can be used in place of the fossil fuel. But still, those all experiments are at lab stage only. So that really require the funding, finance, and the commercial level productions basically. Another area is basically we are replacing the raw materials like the clinker reductions. Almost now in India, 70% productions are from the PPC. So once we say PPC, means basically that much reduction in the clinker utilization is happening, that much reduction in the CO2 reduction is happening. Another challenge is basically the logistic. It is a huge logistic which is required for the cement, and there we require support from the transport industry, where we have put certain electric trucks on the road so that that emission can be reduced, but still affordable solution is required. So
Rajizab, thank you very much. Greening electric power generation, major priority for the country. But we are glad that you are at it yourself as to what you can do, not just with the inputs, but in terms of your stuff yourself. Nitish, I'll turn to you because you have to shed light to everyone. But a few minutes to you, my colleague, Commodore Debesh Lahiri, who heads the National Center for Excellence on Green Ports and Shipping. Just a couple of minutes, because transport certainly is one of the major areas where we in India need to do something. Then to you, Nitish, because as I said, you have to shed the light before we wind up here. We have just a few minutes left.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Well, just to allow me to throw in some numbers. 71, 80, 95, 68. So if you look at planet Earth, 71% is water, interconnected. Waters of the oceans are interconnected. 80% of world's trade moves by the seas. 80%. Anything and everything that you do in your daily life, 80% of that has somewhere been a part of some shipment. 95 is the percentage by volume of India's export-import trade. And 68 is the value, 68% by value of India's exempt trade. These are figures that we're talking of. If you look at global shipping, the percentage emitted, we heard some numbers, of course they spoke with respect to India, steel and cement. But if you look at a global scenario, 2.89% is the emissions from the shipping sector. So if shipping was to be a country, it would be the 6th or the 7th largest emitter in the world. Now what are we doing? There are plans afoot. Viksit Bharat, of course, remains that goal that we are all striving towards. So as part of that, there is something called the Maritime Amritkal Vision 2047. As part of that, there is something called the Harit Sagar Guidelines, which is looking at greening of ports. All our ports have been given finite targets to achieve with respect to greening, not only in terms of the green environment, but also in terms of operations. So they are looking at changing over to green, energy sources, electrification of equipment. That electricity will come from green sources. They're looking at a whole, there are a set of measures which are there in place. Similarly, for shipping, we are looking at green fuels. So right now, if you look at for the immediate future, in the near term, we are looking at a mix of, say, LPG, LNG, and then we are looking at biofuels and methanol, to be followed by green ammonia, to be followed by green hydrogen. So these are steps that have been looking at. The logistics chain is for the shipping industry is also being looked at in a similar manner. I can see the chair looking at me, so I guess I'll have to quieten down, pipe down, as we say in the Navy, and maybe in the question and answer session, we can take on some more specific queries.
Commodore Lahiri, thank you very much. That was important. It was important to tell you that it's not just steel, it's not just cement, it's not just electric power generation, but as he told you, if shipping was an industry, it would be the 6th largest emitter in the world. This is why we need to understand that we need to act across the entire ecosystem, also in terms of what we do. Now, Nitish from Philips, are we in a good room here? Are we doing something about reducing GHG emissions in this beautifully, brightly lit room, which I'm sure you've done? What is it that you would say to us? You have a couple of minutes to lead to us, because otherwise we are actually running out of time. Please go ahead. Shed some light.
Sure. So I will just come with a few figures around the built environment and where do we stand today. There are many estimations which states that almost 70% when we are going to be a developed country, it is yet to be built. 40% of the emissions are targeted towards building sector, the built environment, out of which almost 30-35% is upfront embodied carbon when you construct a building, and almost 65% is during its operational phase. And there we come into picture during the operational phase. 15 to 20% is contributing towards lighting. So global electricity consumption, 15 to 20% is dedicated to lighting. Where we can reach to 8%, we have moved phenomenally in terms of energy efficiency since the era of the conventional lamp, which used to consume, let's say, give light around 10 lumens per watt. LEDs in India, let's say if you want to sell an LED bulb, it has to be minimum 90 lumens per watt as per, B star rating program. So 90% efficiency is already there. Now where we are leading to? So where we are leading to is almost 200 plus lumens per watt. So the kind of potential, the kind of transition, which exists in the, energy efficiency sector is humongous. There is an IEA report which states that almost 40% of the emission reduction by 2040 is going to come from energy efficiency itself. And it's one of the lowest hanging fruit. And it has been driven based on the ROI. It has never been driven based on multiple, only policy push, but the corporates, the professional, the B2B consumers are buying it purely based on the ROI. And that is how, India has moved at a much faster pace in terms of LEDification as compared to the rest of the world, even most developed economies like US and EU. So great potential which exists in lighting, and it is not only to illuminate everybody's house. The world is going to need more light, world is going to need more energy efficient light, and world is going to need more smart and connected light.
Nitish, thank you very much. We are going to need a lot of light. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I was just wondering, incandescent bulbs, मुझे तो नहीं लगता यहाँ पर कहीं भी मिलते हैं दिल्ली में. It's you all who've done it. What is it that you've done? Reduce the price of an LED bulb from, what was it, several hundred rupees to 39 rupees? That's what you say you've done?
Yes. Yeah. So, when the first tender of ESL was, floated, they sourced LED lamps around 350 or so. And the last tender in which we won, it was, around less than 40 rupees. So it's a phenomenal journey. The LEDs, replace the CFL just because sheer costing benefit and also the efficiency. The CFL used to cost much more than the LED lamps, and that's how they replaced all those, inefficient lamps.
Absolutely right, Nitish. It takes both two to tango, as they say. The government made the efforts, set in the policy prescriptions, a little bit of pressure, but a huge amount of market. And the technologists did not let us down. India is on its big, huge journey to Viksit Bharat 2047. We all know the conventional methods were very simple and straightforward, but we can't do that anymore. We also have to meet our target of net zero 2070. Therefore, our Viksit Bharat by 2047 is going to be a sustainable and a responsible Bharat, which will ensure that we not only do the right for our people here, for people in the global south, but indeed for humanity. Thank you very much to all of you, my panelists. Very delighted to Mr. Arup Malik from TERI, who curated this entire program, to TV9, to all of you. Thank you very much and wish you all a lovely evening ahead and all the best as we strive to Viksit Bharat, but with sustainability being also a movement which moves along. And let me leave again with you right at the end, the one big call of the Prime Minister. Integrate this not only into the corporate world and so on, but also in terms of what you do yourself, the life imperative. Make it a journey of your own life, because after all, it is our world, it is our society, it is our family, and above all, it's our planet. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And what a fantastic session that was. I hope it makes us all a little more responsible and understand that we need to take care of the earth and the planet and the air we breathe and the emissions that we contribute to every day. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, it is a wrap right here on News 9 Global Summit. Thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this. And I've been told dinner will be served in just a few minutes at L1 level. Take the escalator down, and dinner should be open in a few minutes from now. Thank you so much once again, and have a good night and a good weekend.